So lots of people have used the Claude Chat, but Cowork is a completely different way of using AI. And in this video, I'm going to show you what that actually means for construction and why it's useful. So to kick things off, what is the difference between Claude Chat and Claude Cowork? Well, Claude Chat is just an interface where you can ask questions, get an answer. You can upload documents to give it greater context so that it can give you a better answer back. Or you can add it to projects where it is able to have a deeper level of context throughout multiple conversations. And also, obviously, you can run skills within chat and create documents and other items. But Cowork is completely different because when you are uploading files to chat, you're limited to about 20, I think 30 megabytes. And when you're uploading it to the projects, it's similar as well. It's about 20 as your maximum you can upload there. So you're limited on the amount of files you can put in. Now, Cowork works completely different in that you actually connect it to a folder on your laptop. So that means it has access to all the files within that folder and also all the context within it. Now, the best way to do it is typically to have a Claude.md, so a markdown file, essentially a file of text, which describes what the folder structure is for. So in the case I'm going to be showing today, it's for the Miramar Community Center build. And there's a Claude.md file that explains what's in there, why, and where they're at with the project. So it can better know where to go searching for information. And then when I ask a question on something like the specification, then it will go and look in the specification within that folder and pull out the context there. And on top of that, Cowork can actually go ahead and do tasks for you. So that might be things like updating a spreadsheet, creating a spreadsheet, pulling information from your Gmail, running scheduled tasks, and much more stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is run through 6 cool features that are actually useful for construction. And number one is that because it has local file access, you can do things like this. So let's say, for example, inside I've connected the Miramar Community Center there as a folder. And what I want to do is I have a project specification and I also have a quote back from an HVAC subcontractor that I'm looking at using. And what I want to find out is what the differences are between the quote that I've given and what's actually in the mechanical spec for it. So I'm just going to send that now, and it's going to go away and look at those 2 documents and then compare them. And I haven't uploaded anything because it's already within the folder structure there. And you can see on the right, it's already gone and is taking a look at the Claude.md, which is the reference file. And there you can see it's gone and verified that it needs to have a look at the subcontractor quote within the folder there, as well as the specification. And now it's gone up and given us the 4 steps that it's going to go through to essentially answer the question. So you do get a look at what it's actually doing and what it's looking at when it goes through and completes tasks like this. And as you can see, the alternative way to do this in chat would be to upload both of those documents, ask the same question, and then it would go through and do that. So now it's completed doing that set of tasks. You can see up here, it's progressed through the 4 stages and it's given me a detailed description of what's actually missing. And then it's gone through and point by point in terms of like magic lab, whether it's just unclear, unconfirmed, potentially missing. So items I can then act on. And then here's a summary table. But because I'm inside Cowork here, what is actually a more useful thing to do if I want to reference this later is get it to turn this into a markdown file, and then it will save it inside the folder structure. And that means that next time I ask a question on what was a scope gap difference in between these 2, it doesn't need to go and rerun the whole process again. It can just go through and look at the markdown document. So I'm going to do that now. So now it's going to go through and take all that information, put it into a markdown, and then I can reference that in future tasks. And there you can see it's gone through, created a markdown file, and it's also in here, saved within the folder structure there. And if I click into it, you can just see it's basically given us exactly what it had before, but now it's in a format where I can reference it again later and can also build up this context. And that comes to the second point when it comes to Cowork, and that's its memory. So you can see here we've got our instructions, which is a Claude.md file, which is telling it basically background information on the project, what's in the folder and why. And that can be updated over time as you complete certain tasks or as you move through certain stages of the project. And on top of that, like we just discussed there, is it saves files to that folder. And so when it creates things, you can reference that thing later on automatically because it's already saved within the folder there. So you get a build up of context as you go forward. And there's lots of ways that you can optimize that Claude.md file and the structure itself so that it can easily find the information it needs. Now, for now, I've only got a few documents in there, which are the base documents for the project. And so it's not that important, but as it expands, having that folder structure in Claude.md tidied up is a really good way to do that. And the third thing that you get with Cowork is what's called connectors. And that allows you to connect to external applications like your Gmail, Calendar, Google Drive, that sort of thing. Even tools like Canva, where you can do external stuff. This is important. I'll get into that later, as you can connect in and schedule tasks between like Gmail and things like that, and also pull context in from there as well. Then the fourth thing is you can still run skills inside here in the same way that you can with chat. But the benefit of running them inside of Cowork is obviously one, that you have that folder level context for everything. Two, it's going to save it inside the folder as well. And three is you can actually, when you create a skill with scripts or pieces of code that do things, they can run in Cowork, but they can't run in chat. And what that means is that if you have, say, like a template for a daily report, and you've created a skill that has a script that fills out that exact template, it will just go through and do that, create a new document, fill out the template, and then save it inside the folder. Whereas if you're using chat, then what it's actually going to do, even if you have that skill is there with that script, because it can't run the script, it will look at what the Word document template looks like. And then when it goes through to create the new daily report, it will actually just recreate the entire document to create the Word doc rather than filling it out. And that's because it doesn't have the script to fill it out. It only has the ability to create new documents. Although it is relatively accurate from creating it, from essentially taking the template and then rebuilding it, it's not as good as something that you could do inside of Cowork there as well. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say new task. I'm going to use one of the skills that we have inside of Contract OS that I've used before to do a contract review. And all I have to do, because it already has the documents it needs inside the folder structure there. So I'm just going to paste in the prompt to review the special conditions for this project using the skill. And it should pick up that I'm talking about the contract review skill, and run through that skill and then find the documents that it actually needs inside the folder structure, and then give me that output in the way that I've specified it inside the skill. And you can see now it's just kicked off running that skill. And you can see it pop down here for context that it is actually using the contract review skill that we have, which is great. And now you can see the special conditions file has been loaded into what it is using currently, along with the core instructions, that is. So now it's going to take a little bit of time, but it's going to run through the special conditions in the format that I have told it to in the skill. And it will come back with a document summarizing essentially what those conditions are, what they mean, and potentially what I should do about it for me to review and then decide whether I actually need to do anything or not. Now, I should say as well that the way skills work in Cowork is, one, they can be in your skill library inside the customized area of Claude, which is the same where they are with chat. And the other way is you can actually have the skill files inside of the project itself, and it should still pick them up and use them whenever they're referenced there, provided they're obviously inside the Claude.md. Now you can see it's created the special conditions review document now. So now that's a part of its context it can find at a later date without me needing to re-upload it or recopy anything across. And so it's worked through all of its workings. It's gone through and given us the usual overview that it would do the same way it does in the chat. And here it's actually created the document. So you can click into this now and see when it loads up that it's actually in the same format that we would like every time. It's got the same green, red, green, yellow, red items to flag there. And it's gone through with the statutory compliance check, which is slightly different. So for New Zealand jurisdiction, that's the Construction Contracts Act. It's checked the conditions against that. And you can see there's one that's come up as a partial that doesn't meet it. So that'll be something to dig into further. And then it's gone for a clause by clause review and basically put what it says, why it matters, recommendations. And then obviously you as the human will make the call on what's really relevant here and what you actually want to go ahead and change. And then here's the summary of the items that it's flagged up in here. So that's using skills within Cowork, very similar, except now obviously this is saved as a document within inside the contract there. And the next thing here is you can run projects within Cowork, much like you can run projects within the chat window. For example, if I go through here, you can see there's a projects tab and it works in a similar way. And to be honest, because Cowork runs in folders, the way that I have found most useful to use that is more of an organization of chats within projects. So you can go back to a chat that you've had in the past and you can find it through the project. Because in reality, if I wanted to switch projects here, I would go new task and you see it's connected to the Miramar Community Center. So now to go is going to the different folder. So I would unselect this one by tapping it. And now you can see work in a project. And then I would select, let's say Hillside Apartments, which is another project within inside of there. And then now I'm working within this project. And so everything I do is going to get saved within inside of the Hillside Apartments project. It's completely different. So I could ask a question like, what are the LD for this project? And it's going to answer based on this new one, not the Miramar one. So we've essentially switched projects there. And I could have asked this, I could have created a new project in Claude and then called it the Hillside Apartments project and answered it with there. The benefit being that it's nice and easy to, it does keep memory in the projects as well, but so does it in the folder also. And then you can see here it's answered that question based on the Hillside Apartments one. So that's essentially the best way to change between projects there. So what I'm actually going to do is jump back in. I'm going to deselect that and select Miramar Community Center again. And the sixth thing on our list here is actually scheduled tasks. And this is relatively new inside of Cowork as well, but it can do a lot of cool things. And I guess like with all of these different, I guess, features / functionalities of Cowork, it's sort of really up to you as what you can dream up and put some ideas down in the comments about how you might be using Cowork as well. But one cool one would be, let's say if you're like a project director and you're getting a ton of emails every day and you just want to know what's happened on the Miramar Community Center project and what is actually relevant for you. So what you do is you go / schedule and you can see it comes up here, and that is a function which is essentially telling Cowork that it's going to be some sort of recurring schedule. And then you paste in your prompt. So I'm just going to say that every morning at 7 a.m. check my Gmail for emails related to the Miramar Community Center project from the last 24 hours. Summarize them all, flag any RFI responses, variation instructions, or issues raised, and then list the action items and who needs to do what, and then save that brief to a project folder for me to review. That gives me a snapshot at the start of the day if I was a project director on everything that's happened without having to go through my emails and do that. So what I'm going to do here is hit enter, and that will actually go through and recognize that it's obviously a schedule and that I want it done 7 a.m. every day, and it will create that task for itself to go ahead and complete. So now it's creating the scheduled task, it's going through that process, and now it's popped up to confirm that I do want a daily 7 a.m. brief summarizing the Miramar Community Center from the last 24 hours at 7 a.m. every day. And I can go through and see the details, which is essentially the prompt is going to run each day at 7 a.m. And then you go through hit schedule and it's created it. So now I should get a morning brief every day. And that's just giving me a summary of what that actually is. And I could run it now and create that summary there. So very cool use case in terms of if you're a project director. And there's obviously much more you can do with scheduled tasks, but that's a very sort of simple overview of what Cowork is and a different sort of way of thinking about how to work with AI in terms of folder there. But the big thing with Cowork is that it's actually creating files within inside the folder there. There's some important things to think about though, is that yes, the AI has access to your entire folder. And so there is a risk that it overwrites something or deletes something or does anything along those sort of lines. So if these are your only copies of the documents, then I would recommend making sure you take regular backups of the things that are in there, just in case it does go rogue and end up deleting something. I mean, providing you're keeping it pretty strict prompts, it's unlikely, but it's probably more likely to overwrite something that you didn't want it to do and you can't find the background for that. So that's one thing to watch out for now. And as you use it over time, you'll get a feel for how that actually goes. Then the bigger thing is that as these grow, it's making sure that it has the right framing to understand where to go for information. But it's a new way to think about AI. So that is an overview of how it might work. And if you want to check out these skills and keep up to date with AI, there's a link in the description to join our community Contract to OS, where we have a lot of skills that you can go ahead and download straight away, as well as stay up to date. And there's weekly Q&As where you can come in and have a chat about how AI might work for you, and also see how other people are using it inside the industry as well. So I'd love to see you in there, and I'd love to see you in the next video. Have a good rest of your day.